Most people do this first thing in the morning without thinking twice. Finish their coffee, then brush their teeth. But here's the problem. When you brush right after drinking coffee, especially if it's hot or acidic, you're not cleaning your teeth. You're spreading acid across your gums. That acid weakens the enamel and inflames the gum line. And why does that matter? Because scientists have found that chronic gum inflammation is directly linked to memory decline and even Alzheimer's. In fact, a Harvard study found that older adults with poor gum health had up to 65% higher risk of cognitive impairment. So if you're brushing right after coffee, thinking you're doing the right thing, you could actually be damaging your memory over time without even realizing it. Section 1. Expanded. Brushing your teeth right after coffee. It's one of the most common morning routines. You wake up, brew a fresh cup of coffee, sip it while reading the news or scrolling your phone, and then head straight to the bathroom to brush your teeth. Sounds responsible, right? But if you're over 60, this one innocent habit might be quietly harming your memory, and here's why. Coffee is acidic. When you drink it, it temporarily softens the enamel on your teeth and leaves an acidic layer on your gums. Now, if you brush right after drinking, you're not removing that acid. You're rubbing it deeper into the gums, like scrubbing sandpaper into a wound. Over time, this wears down the gum line and creates chronic inflammation, something researchers now know plays a much bigger role in cognitive decline than we ever thought. In a groundbreaking study by Harvard School of Public Health, seniors with persistent gum inflammation were found to be 65% more likely to suffer from memory loss, confusion, and even early signs of Alzheimer's. The connection? Your mouth is a gateway to the brain. Inflammation in your gums can trigger low-grade inflammation in the brain, slowly impairing your memory, focus, and even decision-making. Dentists now recommend waiting at least 30 minutes after drinking coffee before brushing, especially for older adults. Instead, rinse your mouth with water right after coffee to neutralize the acid, and then brush once your enamel has recovered. And here's a tip most people miss. If you're drinking coffee with sugar or cream, the risk is even higher. That sugary coating feeds bacteria in your mouth, making the inflammatory effects worse. So, if you're trying to protect your brain after 60, it might start with something as simple as changing when you brush your teeth. Section 2. Cooking with aluminum foil. You've probably wrapped a baked potato in aluminum foil or used it to line a pan without thinking twice. But what if this everyday habit is slowly leaking metal into your brain? When aluminum foil is heated, especially with acidic foods like tomatoes, lemon, or vinegar, it leaches small amounts of aluminum into the food. It might not sound like much, but over time, these tiny exposures can build up. And here's the shocking part. Studies have found that aluminum is present in unusually high levels in the brain tissue of Alzheimer's patients. It doesn't belong there yet. It ends up accumulating silently in areas responsible for memory and learning. One 2020 study from the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease tracked over 500 adults over 60. Those who regularly cooked with foil had 3 times higher aluminum levels in their blood and scored significantly lower on memory tests compared to those who avoided foil. The worst part? It's not just aluminum foil. Using aluminum pots and pans or storing leftovers in foil while the food is still hot can have the same effect. And because memory loss doesn't happen overnight, most people never connect the dots. If you want to protect your brain, start swapping aluminum for uncoated stainless steel, cast iron, or glass cookware. These materials don't leach toxins, and your brain will thank you for it. Section 3. Reheating food in plastic containers. It's fast, it's convenient, and it might be one of the most brain-damaging habits hiding in plain sight, especially if you're over 60. Reheating food in plastic containers, even ones labeled microwave safe, may quietly expose your brain to chemicals that disrupt memory function. These plastics often release endocrine-disrupting compounds like BPA and phthalates when exposed to heat. And while the label may say safe, studies have shown that even BPA-free plastics can still leach harmful chemicals when microwaved. So what does this have to do with your memory? These chemicals don't just mess with your hormones. They also interfere with neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, which is essential for forming new memories. When that process is disrupted, you may start experiencing brain fog, forgetfulness, or trouble concentrating, the very things many seniors dismiss as just aging. But it's not always age. Sometimes it's your microwave. A study published in Environmental Health Perspectives followed 300 older adults and tracked their exposure to plasticizers over a year. Those with high levels of phthalates in their urine showed a significant reduction in working memory and slower cognitive response times. In other words, The more plastic exposure, the worse their brain performed. And here's a real-life case that stuck with me. A 72-year-old retired teacher named Grace told her doctor she couldn't remember her grandchildren's birthdays anymore. She was eating healthy, walking every day, and even doing crossword puzzles, but she was reheating every single meal in plastic Tupperware. Within 3 weeks of switching to glass containers, her brain fog started to lift. If you've ever microwaved soup in a takeout container or leftovers in an old plastic bowl, now's the time to make a switch. Use glass, ceramic, or stainless steel instead. And if you need to use plastic for storage, always transfer the food to a plate before reheating. Because the truth is, you could be doing everything else right and still sabotaging your memory from the inside out with every meal. Section 4. Sitting in the same spot for hours. You might think it's harmless just sitting on the couch, reading, watching TV, or working on your laptop. But did you know that sitting for long stretches without moving can actually shrink parts of your brain responsible for memory? It's not just about posture or joint stiffness. When you sit for too long, especially without standing up or walking around regularly, your blood flow to the brain slows down. And less circulation means less oxygen and fewer nutrients reaching the areas that store and process memories. The brain, especially the hippocampus, the memory center, starts to atrophy little by little. A study out of UCLA scanned the brains of over 1,500 adults over 60 and found something shocking. Those who sat for more than 8 hours a day had significantly thinner brain structures, especially in the regions linked to memory, formation, and decision-making. And the scariest part? Exercise didn't cancel out the damage. Even people who worked out in the morning but then sat all day still showed signs of brain aging. One neuroscientist called it active couch potato syndrome. There was a case of a 8-year-old man named Edward, a retired engineer. He took long morning walks, but then sat nearly 9 hours a day tinkering with puzzles and computer work. He started forgetting names, mixing up dates, and losing track of conversations. His doctor didn't prescribe a pill. He told him to set a timer every 45 minutes and walk for 3 minutes. Within a month, his brain scans showed increased blood flow and sharper mental clarity. Here's the takeaway. It's not just about how much you move, it's also about how often. Break up long periods of sitting with quick bursts of movement. Stretch, stand, pace during phone calls. These little changes keep your brain awake and your memory sharper than you think. Section 5. Taking antihistamines at night. If you struggle with allergies or sinus issues, you've probably reached for an antihistamine at night to help you sleep. But what if that same pill, the one that promises relief, is quietly messing with your memory while you rest? Here's what most people don't realize. Antihistamines block a key brain chemical called acetylcholine. This neurotransmitter plays a crucial role in memory formation, focus, and alertness. When acetylcholine levels drop, your brain has a harder time storing new memories and retrieving old ones. And for seniors, the effects are even more dramatic. Research from the Indiana University School of Medicine found that long-term use of common over-the-counter antihistamines, especially those labeled as PM or sleep aid, was directly linked to brain shrinkage and lower cognitive performance. In fact, users showed patterns on brain scans similar to those with early dementia. You might be thinking, but it helps me sleep better. Here's the twist, it actually doesn't. Antihistamines may make you feel drowsy, but they disrupt deep REM sleep, which is the most important phase for memory consolidation. So not only are you blocking the chemical needed for memory, you're also skipping the sleep stage your brain uses to organize and store information. There's a documented case of a 6-year-old woman named Barbara who was taking a popular over-the-counter nighttime allergy pill every night for 3 years. She noticed increasing forgetfulness and confusion, even mixing up her ATM pin and her granddaughter's birthday. When she stopped the medication under doctor supervision, her clarity returned in under 6 weeks. So what's the safer alternative? Try saline nasal sprays, natural antihistamines like quercetin, or talk to your doctor about non-sedating options that don't interfere with brain chemistry. And if you're using antihistamines as a sleep aid, melatonin or magnesium might be a much safer choice. Because when it comes to your brain, the wrong bedtime pill could be doing more harm than the allergies ever did. Section 6. Sleeping with a night light on. It sounds harmless, even comforting. A soft night light in the corner, maybe it helps you navigate to the bathroom without tripping. But here's the hidden danger. That small light could be disrupting one of the brain's most powerful memory-protecting processes. Your body is designed to sleep in darkness, and when you leave a night light on, even a dim one, it interferes with melatonin production. Now, most people think melatonin is just for sleep, But here's what they don't know. Melatonin is also a major player in the brain's overnight detox system. During deep sleep, your brain uses melatonin to activate something called the glymphatic system, a waste-clearing process that flushes out toxins, dead cells, and amyloid plaques that are linked to Alzheimer's. When melatonin is suppressed by light exposure, this system gets disrupted, and the result? Memory fog, slower recall, and long-term cognitive decline. One study published in Sleep Health found that adults over 60 who were exposed to light while sleeping had significantly higher risks of memory impairment, insulin resistance, and elevated heart rates, even if the light was just from a hallway or a glowing TV. And the damage doesn't stop there. Sleep researchers in Japan tracked over 800 older adults for 2 years. Those who used night lights or kept their TVs on at night were 30% more likely to develop mild cognitive impairment, even if they got the recommended hours of sleep. A woman named Teresa, 73, always left a nightlight on in her bedroom for safety, but she noticed she was waking up more tired and her mind felt cloudy by midday. When her sleep specialist suggested using blackout curtains and turning off all light sources, she hesitated but tried it. Within 2 weeks, her sleep deepened and the mental fog began to lift. So here's the bottom line. Darkness is medicine for your brain. If you need light for safety, use motion sensor lights in the hallway or a low blue light flashlight. But when it comes to where you sleep, keep it pitch black. Your memory will thank you for it. Section 7. Using mouthwash daily. You swish it, you spit it, and it leaves your mouth minty fresh. But that refreshing rinse might be doing more than killing bad breath. It might be silently killing your memory too. Here's the problem. Most commercial mouthwashes don't just kill harmful bacteria, they wipe out all bacteria, including the good ones your brain needs. That's right. Your mouth isn't just a place for chewing and talking. It's home to a delicate ecosystem of bacteria that help regulate nitric oxide production. And nitric oxide isn't just a blood pressure regulator, it's also crucial for blood flow to the brain. When you use strong antiseptic mouthwash daily, studies show it reduces nitric oxide levels by up to 90% within hours. This leads to restricted blood flow, especially to the hippocampus, the brain's memory center. A major study in the journal Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience followed older adults who used mouthwash daily and found they were far more likely to show signs of memory loss and decreased mental clarity compared to those who didn't. And here's something even more surprising. Many people who try to stay sharp by exercising and eating well are actually blocking their body's ability to deliver oxygen and nutrients to the brain. With a single rinse every morning. One patient, a retired firefighter named Glenn, 69, used mouthwash twice a day, every day for years. He was diligent about his health, but couldn't shake this persistent brain fog. When his doctor told him to stop using mouthwash and switch to natural rinses or salt water, Glenn was skeptical, but tried it. After 3 weeks, he noticed clearer thinking, better recall, and improved focus. So, what's the smarter move? Try a natural mouth rinse with xylitol, or even better, swish with warm salt water or oil pull with coconut oil in the morning. These methods freshen your mouth without destroying the healthy bacteria your brain depends on. Because sometimes, the habits that feel clean may actually be erasing more than just bad breath. They may be scrubbing away your memory too. Section 8. Multitasking while eating. You sit down for a meal, turn on the TV, check your messages, maybe even scroll through social media while chewing. It feels normal, harmless, efficient even. But what if this one habit, multitasking while eating, is slowly weakening your brain's ability to form and retain memories? Here's what's happening behind the scenes. When your brain is splitting attention between food and a screen, it enters a state called divided focus. And in this state, the brain's memory system, especially the hippocampus, can't fully encode what's happening around you. That might not sound important while eating, but it trains your brain to ignore details and to be less present. Over time, this leads to weaker concentration, slower recall, and reduced cognitive flexibility. A study from the University of Sussex found that people who regularly multitask during meals, especially with screens, had lower gray matter density in the anterior cingulate cortex, a region linked to attention, memory, and emotional regulation. The researchers warned that multitasking during daily routines, like eating, literally reshapes the brain for distraction. And here's the kicker. The more you do it, the less aware you become of how much you're actually consuming, which can also affect blood sugar balance and inflammation. both of which are linked to cognitive decline. There's also a real-life case from a memory clinic in Chicago. A 70-year-old woman named Diane reported increasing forgetfulness and foggy mornings. She ate breakfast every day while watching the news and scrolling her phone. Her neurologist had her commit to just 1 week of distraction-free eating. No screens, no news, just her and her food. The result? Sharper focus, faster word recall, and even better digestion within days. So how do you reverse the damage? Start with 1 meal a day in silence or with calming music. Focus on the flavors, textures, and chewing. This trains your brain to stay present and strengthens the very neural pathways responsible for memory retention. Because if you can't focus during something as simple as eating, how can your brain stay sharp when it really counts? Section 9. Ignoring mild dehydration. You might not feel thirsty. You might not even notice it, but just a 2% drop in hydration can shrink your brain and impair your memory, especially after 60. As we age, the body becomes less efficient at signaling thirst. That means many older adults walk around mildly dehydrated every single day, not because they're careless, but because the body simply isn't alerting them anymore. And unfortunately, the brain pays the price first. A study from the University of Connecticut showed that even mild dehydration leads to lower concentration, slower reaction time, and poor memory recall, particularly in older adults. Brain scans revealed that the hippocampus, which handles short-term memory, actually shrinks slightly when fluid levels drop. The result? You forget names. You lose track of conversations. You mix up appointments. And here's the twist. Coffee, tea, and even some medications act as diuretics, meaning they increase fluid loss without replacing it. So you may be sipping beverages all day, but still falling into a dehydrated state. One patient named Harold, age 74, was referred to a neurologist for suspected early dementia. But during intake, the doctor noticed he was only drinking about 2 glasses of water a day and heavily relying on coffee. Within 2 weeks of bumping his water intake to just 6 to 8 cups a day, his mental clarity returned, and his forgetfulness faded. No medication needed. Here's a simple test. If your mouth feels dry, your urine is dark yellow, or you're feeling sluggish by midday, chances are your brain is already dehydrated. Try this. Start your day with a glass of water before coffee. Add electrolytes or a pinch of sea salt to 1 bottle a day. Set reminders if you forget. And remember, by the time you feel thirsty, your brain has already been running low. Because sometimes, it's not aging. It's just dehydration, stealing your sharpness 1 dry day at a time. Section 10. Retelling the same stories. It starts off sweet. You're sharing a favorite memory, maybe something funny from your childhood, or a story about your kids. But then, without noticing, you tell it again, and again, and again. We all repeat ourselves occasionally, but when retelling the same stories becomes a daily habit, it's more than just familiar. It can actually reinforce mental loops and prevent your brain from forming new connections. Here's how. The brain is a pattern-building machine. Every time you recall a memory, it strengthens the neural pathway linked to that story. That's not always a bad thing. Repetition can solidify facts. But when you only use the same few mental pathways over and over, your brain stops branching out. Neuroplasticity slows down, and your ability to learn, recall, and adapt to new information begins to fade. A study from the University of Toronto found that seniors who engaged in more novel mental stimulation, like learning new stories, exploring unfamiliar conversations, or even changing up their social interactions, had significantly better memory retention and slower cognitive decline compared to those who repeated the same routines, stories, and thoughts. One psychologist shared the case of an 80-year-old man who told the same 3 stories at every family dinner. His grandchildren loved him, but tuned out. When encouraged to join a storytelling group where members were required to tell new tales every week, something incredible happened. His memory improved, his confidence returned, and even his mood lifted. The lesson? Your brain thrives on novelty. So instead of retelling that same vacation story, ask someone about their past. Instead of looping through the same memories, try writing them down and then challenge yourself to recall a new detail or tell it from a different angle. Because when you push your brain to reach for something new, even just a little, you're training it to stay sharp. And after 60, that's one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Final conclusion. Your brain is always listening. Most people think memory decline is just a part of getting older, that it's inevitable. But now, you know the truth. It's often the smallest, quietest habits that do the most damage. Brushing too soon, reheating in plastic, sitting too long. These don't look like threats, but inside your body, they can trigger slow, invisible changes that chip away at your clarity, focus, and mental sharpness. The good news? You can change them. And when you do, your brain responds not with fireworks, but with small wins, remembering names more easily, staying focused longer, feeling more like yourself. Because memory isn't just about age, it's about attention. It's about how you treat your brain, moment by moment, day after day. Start there, and you'll be amazed at what your mind is still capable of.